Welcome to the Women Abroad podcast. I'm your host, Lizet Esquivel. This show is part of the section Women Who Inspire, where you will learn stories and experiences of successful female expats from all over the world. They will share with us the secrets that nobody is willing to tell you about living overseas. Welcome to another episode of Women Abroad. My name is Lizet Esquivel, global editor at Welum.com in section Women Who Inspire. And today in Women Abroad, I'm very happy to introduce our guest from today. We're going to travel to Chicago. I love Chicago. So we're traveling with Louise Rook. Louise is a former radio host and British Vogue artist of 10 plus years. She trained as an actress in the UK, graduating from the University of Hertfordshire. Oh my gosh, so complicated that word. With a degree in performing arts before beginning her career in voice acting and radio presenting. Radio shows included both music-led and talk radio shows on a station in both in the UK and Dubai. Over the past year, Louise has launched the Moving Overseas podcast and has also narrated her first audiobook. Louise and her family have made 3 international moves in the last 12 years. She currently lives in western suburbs of Chicago with her husband and 2 sons since moving here from Canada in 2015. So Louise, welcome to Women Abroad.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you here today. So tell us more about yourself. You're from UK. Why did you move to Chicago? And why did you move? And you know, I mentioned that you moved 3 times. Yep. So tell us a little bit about your story. Why this?
Okay, in a nutshell, we were frustrated in the UK. We had a young son at the time, my first son, and my husband was offered a job in Dubai. And we grabbed it with both hands and thought it was, you know, a very exciting opportunity. And so we first left the UK in 2009 and we went to Dubai. We spent 5 very exciting years there. And then we felt it was time to move on, but we did not want to go back to the UK. And so when a job came up, again, this time for my husband in Canada, we again were like, this would be fantastic. The kids were young and very adaptable at that age. So off we went to Canada. We spent 2 years in Calgary, which was incredible. And we learned to ski and all of that. And of course, we went from one very extreme climate to the other. Yeah, that was interesting. And then, unfortunately, my husband actually got made redundant 2 years in. And we both were offered jobs in Chicago. And so we were like, let's go. We'd always wanted to go and live in the States. And Chicago seemed like an incredible city. And so we did it. And here we are. And I don't think we want to move again, not for some time anyway.
So you love Chicago?
We love Chicago, but it's not a winter, I think, that you would want to grow old in. It's a very cold, harsh winter. So I might be looking for sunnier climes as I get older.
Yeah, maybe what you miss more about Dubai is the weather. You know, it's very warm and very hot.
Yes, absolutely. I do miss that. But the summers here are very hot. So we love that.
That's interesting. So now, so how many years have you been living in Chicago?
Literally just about 6, coming up for 6 years.
6 years, wow, long time. So maybe in your case, it's not so obvious, but it's important to ask you, what stereotypes did you face for being British in the USA?
Do you know, I think the biggest stereotype is that people think that you are like the royal family. Especially, I think, with mine and my husband's accents, because we're from the south of England, we're just outside London. And so they think that either we know the royal family or that we're very like the royal family. I think they watch lots of those sort of period dramas, British period dramas on TV, and they think that we all speak like that, and that we are all just like the royal family, and obviously we're not. And the other thing, I suppose, is I feel that people often think that I'm more knowledgeable than I am just because of the accent. I don't know what it is about the British accent, but the Americans seem to think that I sound knowledgeable, which is hilarious.
Interesting. So in your case, it's something more positive in some way, but something negative or something like you don't like to that, you know, people say about that you're British, something that is not so positive.
Do you know, I haven't actually met any negative stereotypes really over here. I have to say, I think that there's a love between the Americans and the Brits, actually. I don't know. I mean, they make fun of us loving fish and chips, but and then
You
drinking
drink
lots of
tea all the
tea.
time.
Yes, and we drink tea all the time. So that's probably because I've had lots of people, you know, friends that I've made, and then they say, "Would you like a cup of tea?" Because they expect that's what I would like. So yeah, probably that's a big stereotype. But no real negatives at all.
And in your case, is it true that you drink a lot of, you know, some tea, or you don't like it, or
No, I used to absolutely love tea until about 2 years ago, and I can't tell you, I have converted to coffee. I think I'm becoming an American because I've ditched the tea for coffee.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Yeah, you know, you change. Yeah, because Americans
changed.
love coffee.
No coffee.
Tea is like a no. And people in, you know, in England, UK in general, they love tea. So
We all love our tea.
You are becoming more American than British.
Yes, I will be disowned as a Brit.
Yeah, terrible. Well, so and now let's talk about the challenges. What challenges did you encounter, and how did you overcome them? Maybe the language, it wasn't a problem, you know, but I don't know, the food or the people, custom, traditions, I don't know, something that was a challenge for you.
Yeah, I think actually the chat is not so much specifically to moving to Chicago, it's actually moving to the States in general. The biggest challenge for us was arriving without a credit score. And that is a problem to begin with, because it's quite difficult to rent a house or to lease or buy a car, or to apply for a credit card, because you have no credit score. And so although we had a credit score in Canada, and we had a credit score in the UK and in Dubai, it counted for nothing here. So we had to keep taking along to, when we were trying to lease a car, we had to take proof of our earnings, our salary, of our visas. I mean, anything that could kind of secure that we were going to be here, and you know, that we wouldn't miss payments, etc. So I think that was one of the biggest things, was not having a credit score, honestly. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, other challenges, I'm trying to think. I would say one of the things that when you come to the States is that you can't do anything without a social security number. Now, that's not necessarily a challenge. It's just something that you have to do when you first get here, because you can't apply for anything, a driver's license, anything, without a social security number. So that was probably, you know, a bit of a hurdle when we got here. We had to do that.
And for example, talking about immigration status, you have a permission to work, or you're a resident, or what? What is your status?
Our visa is, we're on an E2 visa. It's my husband's company. So he works for a British company, but they have offices over here in New York and in Chicago. And so they sponsor him. And as the spouse of him, I am on that visa, but I actually also have to have an employment authorization card to be allowed to work here. So I'm allowed to live here on the visa, but I also have to have the card to allow me to work here. And then the kids are dependents on that visa.
Oh my gosh. Well, it looks like it's not so easy as many people can think, that maybe because you're British, it's easier for you to get, you know, your visa, or your residence? No, it's not easy. It's complicated as well.
Yeah, it is complicated. I think if you have a company doing that side for you, then it's less complicated and it's quite easy. We're lucky because the E2 visas are 5-year visas and they're renewable. So we've already renewed ours once. I know that a lot of the other visas, you can only renew them. In fact, I think some of them you can't renew them. I think if we go down the green card route, that is a very complicated and expensive process.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's interesting what you're saying. Okay, and now tell us, I'm very curious about your work. We mentioned that you are a bow artist, a podcast host, and audiobook narrator. So tell us more about your job. What do you do? What are your projects? All the stuff.
Yeah, so I started out working hosting on radio stations in the UK. That was when I first graduated, and I did breakfast shows and talk shows, different types of shows. Then when we moved to Dubai, armed with that experience, I managed to freelance on Virgin Radio Dubai and Dubai 92, which are two of the big stations over there. And I also started doing voiceovers because obviously if you are in the radio station building, it's very useful. You know, they're always making adverts and commercials. And so they would just pull you in the studio and say, oh, can you voice this? And so I started building up my voiceovers. And then when we moved to Canada, I continued with the voiceovers. And then just recently, you mentioned it when you were introducing me, I launched a podcast last year called the Moving Overseas Podcast. And it is all about families moving overseas and all of the highs and lows that go with that. And so you can see this is a little closet that I'm sitting in that I made into a recording studio.
Wow, I thought it was a professional studio. Wow.
No, this is my wardrobe. It is literally a wardrobe in the spare room.
Wow, impressive. It looks like a professional. Congratulations.
Well, thanks. And then, of course, because I had the studio and I'm recording the podcast, somebody spoke to me about an audiobook. And I was like, my goodness, I listen to audiobooks all the time. I hadn't even thought. And so I started auditioning. And then I was offered a couple, and the one that I'm doing at the moment, I'm just about to finish, is called Faith in Love by Glenys Kellett, and I've just finished that one. So that's been really exciting, and I love the audiobook narration. That's probably my truest passion. I feel like I've found my dream job.
So now that you're saying that, I'm very curious to ask you, for example, what is the difference, I don't know, in the voice or the attitude when you narrate a book and when you have a podcast or a radio program? I don't know, you know, that the voice is different. You have to do something, it's challenging. I don't know, the narrator of the book, or how?
I guess it's very different. When you're narrating, you are doing character voices and it's more acting. You are acting, unless it's, you know, a straight book that you are just, it's a non-fiction book, then you are just narrating it. But if you're doing a fictional book, you are assuming characters and you are acting. Whereas with the podcast and the radio shows, I'm me. So it's a totally different form. And it's funny that I prefer the narration, funnily enough. I like the acting. I'm going back to my acting roots.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Interesting. And what differences do you find between British work culture and the American work culture? You can say something you notice in leadership, schedule, or, you know, ways to work, something that you can tell us to understand.
I think the biggest difference is that over here, there is a very sort of driven work culture, and they put in long hours over here, and also they get less vacation time. So, and you know, the UK is not quite as laid back as the rest of Europe is, but it is much more laid back in terms of they get more vacation time in their contracts. They also stop working at around 5:30, whereas over here, people work long hours and they might only get 2 weeks off. You know, if you're employed, you may only get 2 weeks off a year. That is very different. And there's almost like a guilt that goes with the working market over here. If you're not, you know, constantly checking emails and, you know, working even off the clock, that's very different to the UK. People will clock off in the UK and be done.
So people in UK have the opportunity to have more free time. And,
yeah,
you know, and in the USA, you see that people work harder and harder, long hours, etc.
Yes.
More competitive than the UK.
Yeah, possibly more competitive, but certainly there is a real kind of drive to, you know, must work long hours, must put the time in. Whereas in the UK, you know, after work, a lot of people will be in the pub at around 5 or 5:30 and 6 o'clock. Whereas that's not as common here. Not that I've found anyway. So that would be the biggest difference, I would say.
Interesting. Yeah, in Mexico it's similar. Where I live, it's we work a lot and we don't have a lot of free time, unfortunately. You know, it's terrible. And in Europe, people tend to have more free time, enjoy life, and 2 months of vacations. That for me is too much time. But anyways, lucky people in Europe. Okay, so do you think that in the United States is a country where there is diversity and inclusion?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, particularly Chicago, you can't get much more diverse. I mean, it is a very diverse city. And yeah, I would say 100% yes is the answer to that question.
What nationalities do you see, you know, more people in Chicago?
Oh, lots of Hispanic people, lots of Italians. There's lots of Brits because I'm in a Facebook group with the Brits in Chicago, and there's at least 2,500 people in that group. There, I would say there's a lot of Europeans. I mean, I've met people from all over. I've got a Polish friend here. Yeah, I mean, it's a mix. It's a melting pot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't know there are a huge community of British people there. I know that it's huge, a huge British community in Madrid, for example.
Yes.
And now in Chicago.
Yeah, yeah, there is a lot of
British are everywhere right now.
Yeah. There's a British invasion.
The terrible weather that have, you know, it's famous for that. Terrible weather.
Yes.
And what about well-being? Do you think that there is well-being in the United States?
I do. I mean, it's difficult to speak for like the rest of the states because it's such a huge country and each state is
Let's
so
talk about
very
Chicago,
different.
where you live. Where you live.
Yeah, I mean, I would say absolutely. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that might argue and say, you know, the winters are long and I don't know, but from where I'm sitting, I think that there is tremendous well-being here amongst. I mean, and we're in the suburbs, so again, is a little bit different to downtown. But we've both worked in downtown, so I get the vibe there. But yes, I would say that there is plenty of well-being here.
Okay, interesting, amazing. And now let's talk about the basics. I don't know if in Chicago there are typical dishes as in New York and other states in the USA, but tell us what some traditional or more famous dishes that the people who lives in Chicago eat.
The most famous one is the deep dish pizza. That's Chicago's pizza, and also the hot dogs. The hot dogs are famous, the chili dogs, being that I'm a vegetarian, I haven't had one, but there you go. But they are very famous and you must not ask for ketchup. This is what we learned when we got here, is that if you have a Chicago hot dog, you do not ask for ketchup because it comes with an amazing sauce and you need to experience that.
So they don't, the difference between a hot dog and another place in Chicago is that they have a special sauce.
Yeah, they all these different places that sell the Chicago hot dog, I guess, have their own sauces, and it comes loaded. You know, it's fully loaded with everything, so you don't need ketchup, I think is what they mean.
And the pizza, how I have never tried.
Deep dish. When I say deep dish, it's like a pie, and that is a traditional Chicago pizza. It is the most. You can have one slice and you'll be full for the next 4 hours. It's a deep dish extravaganza.
And the ingredients are the regular ones that it's common in the pizzas, or it's different?
No, I think it's the same, but it's all about the base. It's all about the deep dish dough. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you have a, I don't know, a famous place where people can eat the traditional Chicago pizza. You can say it.
Yeah, you have to go to Lou Minardi's. That is the place to go for your Chicago pizza. Lou Minardi's.
And about the hot dogs?
Oh, now I would say you want to go to Portillo's. That is the best place. That's what my kids would say. So yeah, Portillo's. And of course, they eat a lot of hot dogs, probably shouldn't, but yeah. So Portillo's for hot dogs and Lou Minardi's for pizza.
Oh, I'm hungry.
Getting hungry.
Yeah. No. I love pizza. Okay, so in the lifestyle, tell us about the lifestyle. How the people in Chicago have fun or entertain themselves?
Oh, well, because it's such an amazing city, there's so much to do. You have the beaches downtown, which during the summer are just fabulous. You've got all the parks, and they have fantastic parks, the Maggie Daley Park and the Millennium Park. So lifestyle during the summer in particular is fabulous here. There's so much to do. And then in the winter, when the temperatures do get brutal, I think people do hibernate a little bit, but you've still got some fabulous things to do. There's the wonderful skating rink to go to downtown, where you can get hot chocolate and everybody goes around on the skating rink. And that's a lovely thing to do in Millennium Park. So I think there's a better lifestyle in general here than we had, certainly in the UK. I just think the houses are bigger. There's more opportunities certainly for my kids who are very sporty. They have much better opportunities for sport here. And there's just loads to do. And also the wonderful thing about living somewhere in the States is that you've got the rest of the States on your doorstep. You can take a flight anywhere. It feels like you're going to another country because all the states are so very different. So we love that about living here. We can jump on a flight and go to California. And you've got the rest of America right there.
Wow. So talking about the weather, now that you already mentioned, so how's the weather? I think it's very famous for being windy, very windy.
Yeah, the windy city. So okay, the best thing about it is the long hot summer. From June to the end of September, you're pretty guaranteed hot. It does get pretty humid, but if you like a long hot summer, this is the place. The winters are completely brutal. They are sub temperatures, lots of snow, and so you need a good winter coat. But I like the extreme of that because the fall is beautiful here, and the spring is very short. We kind of flip from winter to summer with a tiny little spring in the middle. So the temperatures are very up and down. You get a cold winter and a hot summer. That's Chicago.
What is the best well, it's something more not so hot, not so cold. What is the best months to visit Chicago for the case of some tourists that I want to visit Chicago?
The best month is probably September, actually.
September.
Yeah, because it's still lovely and warm during the day, but it's not boiling. And the mornings and the evenings just start to cool down a little bit. and it just looks so pretty because the leaves are just starting to change color, but everything is still in full bloom. So the city looks incredible in September.
Oh, interested to know, good to know, in case there's someone are
go.
planning to visit. It's a good. And now customs and tradition. I don't know if you have noticed some custom traditions that you like them or not. Doesn't matter, but you can talk about a little bit about this customs tradition.
I think the one thing that we noticed when we moved here is that there's a lot of holidays that the Americans call holidays, which we in the UK would call like a bank holiday. So you get a Monday off, for example. They seem to have lots of these, and I guess that kind of makes up for the lesser vacation time that they get, because there are so many of these holidays. But I think we've really embraced the holidays here. Like Thanksgiving is a lovely holiday that they celebrate. And, I love Christmas here because, people love lights. And I mean, I thought it was magical in the UK, but it's actually even more magical here because it looks exactly like, when you watch an American movie, a Christmas movie, and it really does genuinely look like that. So those the holidays were something that we got used to. I'm trying to think of some another interesting tradition that they have, or custom, is that they are obviously very proud of their country, which is amazing. And in the UK, I don't think that we display that type of proudness at all. Whereas over here, my kids, when they go to school, the kids will all say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning before they start. So they do that Pledge of Allegiance. Also, whenever we go to sporting events, they play the national anthem, no matter what, even if it's a kids' game. So before my son's football games, they play the national anthem. Before my older son does a triathlon, they play the national anthem. That they are very proud of their country, and the national anthem is played a lot.
So in the UK, people are not so proud of being British or something like. I thought that because the Queen. Wow,
I think that we are proud, but it's almost like we've been. We're not allowed to show because we're so busy trying to be inclusive, and it's such a diverse mix of people there that it's almost like we've been made to feel bad about feeling proud to be British.
Oh, I see. Yeah, just a way to show that you're proud. It's that different. Maybe the Americans are more, they get loud and
they're open with it, Yeah, and a lot of people have flags, American flags, outside their houses here. Now that's something that the Brits would never do.
Yeah, it's true. Even in, I don't know if you notice, for example, in Canada, it's the same thing. I remember when I went to Canada, even for example, McDonald's, and they have the flag of Canada. And in the USA, in many houses, all this stuff, they have the flag from the USA. Yeah. So I noticed that they are similar. Canada and the USA, they're very proud of being Canadian or American.
Yes. Yeah. That's true, and I think it's a good thing. I think that we lack being able to show how proud we are of the UK. Definitely.
Interesting. Well, in Mexico, we don't have that. Only when we celebrate Independence Day. It's the only moment that we're very proud, very loud about it. But the other days, no. Okay. No. And do you think that Chicago is a safe? It's a safe place for women in general?
I do. I mean, in general, yes. It's it's a very westernized, forward-thinking, diverse city, and so I would say absolutely yes.
And okay, talking about accommodation, I'm just curious. You have lived in Dubai, in Canada, and now in Chicago. Based on your experience, talking about let's say a neighborhood is not so fancy or high class, but it's not also so modest or poor. In the middle class, let's say middle class, a place for with 2
Yeah.
rooms, you know, one for you, your husband and your kids. How much in Dubai, how much in Canada, and how much in Chicago? Middle class,
Oh,
small
wow.
place for an idea, just a general idea about to understand the prices of the accommodations.
Yeah, well, I would say Dubai is off the chart. Dubai is extortionately expensive. But if you are moving there from London, it would probably be quite comparative. And then Canada is a little bit cheaper, but I would say by far, living here, you get the biggest bang for your buck, because you know, we're able to have a nice sized house here, much bigger than anything we would be able to get in the UK, because all the houses are quite small there, unless you want to pay an absolute fortune and have a big house in the UK. But we can have a big house here, a detached house, with a, you know, a nice back garden and a garage, and for probably half the price we would pay in the UK. So you definitely get more space, you get a bigger sized house, from certainly from the UK and Dubai. Canada is probably quite relative, a little bit more expensive than here, but not as expensive as Dubai and the UK.
Okay, but you don't have a number or something? Just
Okay, so I'm trying to think. The house that we live in is a 4-bedroomed house here in the suburbs of Chicago, and I think it's worth about $380,000. Now in the UK, if you wanted a 4-bedroomed detached house, you would pay over £1 million where I'm from. So that's from just outside London. Whereas, you know, people who are from the north would pay less than that, but I can only convert it to where I'm from.
Oh my
and in
gosh.
Dubai, I wouldn't even like to think. I can't guess. We didn't buy a house there.
No, yeah, Dubai is very famous because they have a very high fees. So yeah, people have, it's complicated. Maybe as London, you know, but it's a place for rich. Well, it's a place to build that was built by rich people, and you know, so the prices are, you know, similar. But there are also poor people in Dubai. Many people think that all are rich, and no, this is wrong. But yeah, the prices.
No, but there's a contrast. You know, it's either rich or poor. There's not much in between in Dubai.
Yeah, yeah. And the language, well, in this case, the language is English as your mother tongue. In the USA, it's no problem with the English. It doesn't matter that you're British.
It isn't, but sometimes I will feel like I'm.
It's a challenge.
Sorry, I think we were
in
talking
some way
over each other.
It's a challenge.
Sometimes it is, because I think sometimes people don't understand me. I've been asked if I'm Australian lots of times, and the other thing is that, you know, when we first got here and you'd go through a drive-through and you ask for a bottle of water, honestly, it would happen every time. I'd say, "Can I have a bottle of water?" and they'd be like, "What now?" And so I'd have to say water, because they did not understand water. So there's a few things and different words that we use. I asked a neighbor, "When do we put the bins out?" And she was like, "I don't know what you're talking about," because it's the trash collection. I don't know. There's just lots of different little things that sometimes I have felt like I am talking a different language.
Oh my gosh, I thought that it wasn't so complicated. For example, in my case, when I talk to people from Spain, I can understand a lot of words for the context. You know, they're saying something. Yes. It might sound weird for me, but I try to understand. But I thought that just happened to us in Spanish, but it seems like for you that I have your English is British. With the Americans, maybe they have a problem understanding.
I think they do sometimes, yes.
Yeah, we're not used to that, the accent, but I think in some way it's easier sometimes to understand the British because you speak slower. I don't know, in general, slower than the Americans. The Americans speak very fast, and especially the Black people. I don't know why. I'm not racist or something like that, but I've noticed that the Black people tend to speak faster than, and I don't know why.
Just different culture.
Oh my gosh, I don't understand. It's difficult. Okay. If you could say what are the do's and don'ts to do
Yeah.
if you live in Chicago? What we should do and what things you shouldn't do if you move to Chicago?
So I think that the biggest things are do expect to spend a lot of time shoveling snow during the winter and also raking leaves, because that's another thing in the fall. Wow, you are raking leaves a lot of the time. So do expect to do that. Do buy a very warm coat because you will need that in the winter. It's not just a cold winter here, it's a damp cold. So it feels very cold. And then I think the do's, oh no, I said the do's, let's do the don'ts. I would say don't try to park downtown on a street. Use a parking app and find a parking lot, because just forget trying to park on a street downtown. Don't reference Chicago as Chi-town, because you will just show yourself up as a tourist, because the native Chicagoans do not call Chicago Chi-town. I think it was a phrase that Kanye West once used. And so everybody sort of took it on board, but people who are from Chicago do not call it Chi-town. So don't do that.
I didn't know that when people say that phrase, what they mean.
Well, I suppose it's just short for Chicago. It's like CHI town. It's Chi-town. It's supposed to be cool. But I think that people from Chicago don't like it and they don't use it. And if you use it, they'll know that you're not from here.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
Notes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other don'ts. I don't know. Not so. I mean, those would be my don'ts, I think.
Okay, do and don'ts. And now tell us what tourist places should tourists visit or even if they're moving, the first places they need to know immediately if they move to Chicago.
The beaches downtown. You got to do the beaches in the summer. They are beautiful. They're right there on your doorstep, and there's lots of fun stuff to do. The parks, definitely, I mentioned them before, but Chicago has wonderful parks and wonderful architecture. The architecture in Chicago is beautiful, and you don't need to pay to see that view. Lots of people go up the Sears Tower. Oh, it's called the Willis Tower now. It was called the Sears Tower, but you pay a lot to go up to that sky deck and have a look. But you can go to the John Hancock building. And if you go up to the 96th floor there, you can have a drink, there's a bar, and you get the view for free. And that is one thing I would say you got to do if you're coming to Chicago. And if you're coming as a tourist, I would recommend doing the architectural boat tour that goes from Navy Pier, because then you see all of that wonderful architecture that is very unique to Chicago.
Good to know. Good tips and I don't know, for kids or something that you can suggest that you have kids. So maybe some tips or some places for children.
Well, Chicago is obviously one of the sports capitals of the world. So, I mean, you want to take them to a Cubs game, definitely. But otherwise, the parks that I've mentioned are amazing, because lots of them have like, one's got like a scooter track around it, and then they have climbing walls, and there's all sorts of different activities that go on in the parks for the kids during the summer. And then in the winter, I mentioned it earlier, but the skating rink there, the skating ribbon is so fun with kids. They love that. So yeah, definitely. I mean, downtown's full of wonderful things for kids.
Downtown it's a must.
Where it's at. Yeah. Yeah.
And any website, association, WhatsApp group, Facebook group that you recommend for expats living in Chicago?
Well, if you're British, then you must join the Brits in Chicago group, because that's fantastic. Because, you know, we talk about all sorts of stuff on there. And I guess there's probably a Facebook group for every nationality that's living in Chicago. So I would definitely hit a Facebook group up. There's also lots of mums groups on Facebook for, you know, mums in Chicago, mums, I'm in part of the mums in Naperville, because we're in the suburbs here, and those are so useful for, you know, local knowledge. and kind of meeting your local community, really.
Mm-hmm. And now tell me, what did you miss most about your country?
This is quite easy. The biggest thing that I miss is the NHS, the National Health Service, because I grew up in a country where you do not pay for healthcare, and living in America is very different. And it doesn't really matter how good your insurance is, you're still going to pay, and it's expensive. And in my opinion, it's just a terrible, messed up system that does not work for a lot of people. And so I very much miss the wonderful National Health Service in the UK. I also miss my friends and family. Obviously, they should probably come top of the list. And the last thing, fish and chips, because I am British and I do miss fish and chips.
But I guess it's easy to find a restaurant in Chicago that... No?
Not for fish and chips, because they do the fish well, but the chips are not the same, because the chips are always fries and they're not the same.
Okay, so business opportunity. So maybe you can have your own restaurant about fish and chips, and you will have a lot of clients, because
I know
a huge community of people complaining about the same thing. Maybe
my husband keeps saying we should buy one of those, fish and chip vans, the transport, and then just set up, and he thinks that will be terribly successful, but I don't fancy it myself.
Well, maybe in the future when you're tired or doing what you do, it's a good option for you. Interesting. I never imagined I would say that typical dish.
My stereotypical, British.
Yeah. So in your case, tell us what are the keys of your success? Because, well, you live in the States and you have a job and you get paid for that. So what are the keys of your success?
I think for me, it's probably been that my accent has been sort of key for me, because I'm not competing with an American voice. So that's been a great thing. I think the other thing is that I'm the type of person that is not afraid to ask questions or to admit that I don't know something. And I found that people respond well if you're honest and vulnerable, and kind of show your vulnerability. And I'm not scared to do that. I worked for a big youth performing arts company for 5 years here, actually. And I always was very honest with everyone that I worked with. If I didn't know the answer, or if I needed to ask questions, I think that has helped me, honestly, is to let people see your vulnerability and be honest
with them. Okay, very good. And tell me the secret that nobody told you when you moved to Chicago, and you should have known, and maybe your life would be was different or easier.
Yeah, I think I was trying to think of this for ages, because I was looking at your questions last night, and I think the probably the main thing, and it probably it's not specific to Chicago again, it's moving to the States in general. We didn't know that not having a credit score would be so difficult to set up. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then the other thing that nobody really told us, and that we didn't truly understand until we lived through the first summer, is that how long and hot and humid the summers are. Because I think people think of Chicago as this sort of snowy, windy place. But and they forget, or they don't realize that actually the summers here are incredible. I love the summer in Chicago. It's the best. So that was probably something that we didn't really know. It was a secret.
That's amazing. Okay. Okay, Louise, thank you very much. I don't know if you want something else that you want to say, but we are basically done with the episode. Okay. I don't know if you want to say something else.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you want to add that if people are looking for, if they're moving overseas and they want to find the Moving Overseas podcast, there's a website, familiesmovingoverseas.com. And for all my voiceover work and audiobook narration, you can find me at louiserook.com.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you, Louise, for your time, for sharing your experience, your interesting story. And we see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening. Visit our website, www.welum.com, section Women Who Inspire. And don't miss our next episode.